Hello everyone. We will read another news from India-US trade negotiations cruise from Times of India. This news is from Times of India. Trade war, India-US trade negotiations crucial, says Finance Ministry warns secondary and tertiary effects of tariff pose challenges. The Finance Ministry on Wednesday cautioned that while the immediate impact of US tariffs on Indian export may be limited, their secondary and the long term effects could pose significant challenges. The remarks come as Washington's 50% duties on Indian goods took effect from 27th August, covering exports worth over $48 billion. The ministry's monthly economic review stressed that ongoing India US trade negotiations will be crucial in mitigating the fallout while the immediate impact of recent US tariffs on Indian exports may appear limited. Their secondary and uh, tertiary effects on the economy pose challenges that must be addressed. In this context, the ongoing India US trade negotiations will be crucial. It said key sectors facing the brunt include textiles, gems, and jewelry, shrimp, leather, chemicals, and machinery, though pharmaceuticals and energy products remain unaffected. India is simultaneously pushing for diversified trade partnerships with recent FTAs signed with UK and EFTA. The negotiations underway with US, EU, New Zealand, Chile, and Peru. However, the report noted that these initiatives will take time and may not fully offset exports losses if tariffs remain. This includes the recently concluded FTA with the UK and EFTA and ongoing FTA negotiations with the US, EU, New Zealand, Chile, and Peru. But these initiatives will take time to show results and may not fully address the shortfall in exports to US that may arise if the current tariff rates on India persist. It said the review also highlighted India's upgraded sovereign rating by S&P from BBB to BBB minus to BBB, reflecting strong growth, stable policies, and high infrastructure investment domestically, better monsoon rains, and improved crop prospects are expected to keep inflation moderate in the near term. An increased market arrival in Q1, comfortable buffer stocks, and better better output perspectives prospect coupled with stable global oil markets might keep the prices of food grain moderate. The downside risk to global growth are likely to keep international commodity prices in check, partly offsetting the impact of higher tariffs. It noted. To further enhance the economic growth, Prime Minister has announced few initiatives focusing on policy reforms the government announced a task force for next generation reforms, a plan for rollout of GST challenge, GST changes to ease the tax burdens, and schemes like PM Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana to boost jobs and skill development. Together, these measures aims to strengthen growth, attract investment, and sustain economic resilience amid global uncertainties. So, we will read another article, another news that is from Times of India as well. Deal dependent upon India indicates no compromise on red lines for US trade pact. We cannot overlook some. India US trade deal negotiations are contingent on how each country deals with red line, sources have said. The US has imposed 50% tariffs on India for its exports to America. Effective today, the high tariffs 25% reciprocal plus 25% for India's crude oil trade with Russia. Commerce stalemate on trade deal continues, according to the PTI report quoting sources. The progress of India-US trade pact discussions will be determined by how both nations address their respective concerns and limitations. Bilateral trade agreement discussions between India and US commenced in March after completing 5 rounds of negotiations. The scheduled sixth round, where the US delegation was due to visit India from August 25th, has been postponed. India firm on its red lines on US trade deal. India has explicitly stated its position regarding the protection of farmers, fishermen, and small scale industries, with no room for compromise on these matters. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed his firm commitment to safeguard the interests of farmers and fishermen, emphasizing that India will remain steadfast in protecting their welfare. Ultimately, there are some red lines that we cannot overlook. The deal is dependent upon how each party addresses those red lines. Under the suggested BTA, the United States aims to secure lower tariffs on agriculture products, including corn, soybeans, apples, almonds, ethanol, whilst seeking enhanced market access for its dairy sectors. However, India stands firm in opposing these requests, citing concerns over the welfare of its small scale farming community. India has maintained its position of not offering tariff concessions in trade agreements, as evidenced by, by its previous arrangements with nations like Australia and Switzerland. The agreement aspires to elevate bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030, a significant increase from the present $191 billion. Both nations have their sight on sights on finalizing the initial phase of BTA by fall September October 2025. The trade figures for 2024-25 so bilateral exchanges between India and US reached $131.8 billion, comprising $86.5 billion in exports and $45 billion in imports. during April July of 2025-26. The US emerged as India's principal trading partner with bilateral trade valued at $12.56 billion. Okay, apart from this, so we will read another one, that is, okay, so this is also from Times of India. EU Trade Commissioner likely to visit India next month. Talks to advance FTA final hurdles in focus. European Commissioner for Trade Matters Sefcovic is expected to visit India next month to assess the progress of free trade agreement negotiations with Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. PTI reported, citing an official on Wednesday. The visit is likely to coincide with the conclusion of the 13th round of talks scheduled from September 8th in New Delhi. The upcoming round is considered crucial as both sides aims to finalize the negotiations by the end of this year. Quite a bit of movement should be there in this round of talks, the official said, adding that guidance from ministers may be needed to resolve remaining issues, as some matters may require a political decision. The 12th round of talks concluded in Brussels. India and 27 nation EU bloc had resumed negotiations in June 2022 for a comprehensive FTA and an investment protection agreement, a pact of geographical indications. After a gap of over 8 years earlier talks had stalled in 2013 due to differences over the level of the market access. On February 28, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen agreed to seal the long-awaited free trade deal by the end of this year. The EU The EU has demanded significant duty cuts in automobiles and medical devices, tax reductions on products including wine, spirits, meat, and poultry. The strong intellectual property rights framework successful conclusion of the pact could make Indian exports such as ready-made garments, pharmaceuticals, steel, petroleum products, and electrical machinery more competitive. The India-EU Trade Pact negotiations cover 23 policy areas, including trade in goods, trade in services, investment, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, technical barriers to trade, trade remedies, rules of origin, customs and trade facilitation, competition, trade defense, government procurement, dispute settlement, intellectual property rights, geographical indications, sustainable development. India's bilateral trade in goods with EU stood $137.41 billion in 2023-24, with exports worth $75.92 billion, imports at $61.48 billion, making the EU India's largest trading partner for goods The EU accounts for about 17% of India's total exports, while exports from EU to India make up around 9% of total overseas shipments. In services, bilateral trade in 2023 was estimated at $51.45 billion, highlighting the growing significance of EU India economic partnership. Thank you for watching.